Hello and welcome back to episode number 16 of the United Front Football Podcast with me and Mr. M. Breezy. We've had differing fortunes this weekend, but we will get into that at some point.
Just realised the episode number's got 6 in it.
Yeah.
Like...
Oh God, yeah. It's I mean, we will get into it. You can build yourself up to it. You can just a forewarning, this might be quite a blue episode, everyone. I assume there'll be a lot of swears coming in a little bit. But as always, thank you for tuning in. If you are, wherever you are watching, make sure you're subscribing, liking, giving 5-star ratings, whatever you can do on those platforms. It does all help. We have got the return this week of the hot takes from Twitter. So if you're not already, make sure you're following on our socials, especially the Twitter. And every week we ask you for your hot takes and opinions from the weekend, and we will discuss them or criticise them as we often do. Speaking of, we'll start on on the sore subject. Joe, friend of the channel, friend of both of us, says not a particular. Well, maybe it's changed. Not a particularly hot take, but is Arteta subbing on El Neni, Cedric, and an actual child at 6-0 up? Like the footballing equivalent of doing a griddy on FIFA. Is there anything better in football than winning by so much you can sub on random players? So obviously, I think it's definitely directed at one of us, and it's not me. So right to response. The floor is open.
I feel like, look, I love Joe, great guy. I do feel it's obvious, right? He sent that tweet in to get a particular response out of me, and better men. I say better men would not give Joe the satisfaction, but I'm not a better man, so fuck off, Joe. There you
go. Shut up, sweet.
That's literally it. That's literally it. It's from Norwich, by the way. Like, honestly, ridiculous.
The game's gone.
Yeah, game's gone. Right. To go to an actual question from people I like. We'll go with we've got one coming in from Keeney. Another subject that I love talking about, which is Gareth Southgate. Keeney said, instead of fawning over Jordan Henderson, Southgate should be getting Barkley in the next squad. He's been excellent this season for a team that's been tipped by many to go down and possibly beat Derby's unwanted record. And just to add to that, Scott Chapman also came in with a point about Luton and Ross Barkley as well, saying Luton have an excellent chance of staying up. Disappointing loss to Sheffield United, granted, but when they have Rossaldinho Barkley, anything is possible. Said a couple months ago, they have enough about them to stay up, and plus Everton's galvanised response to the points deduction has waned slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said last week, or it might have been the week before. I think like one of the players that's going under the radar a little bit is like one of the surprises for me with the whole Luton thing is this resurgence of Ross Barkley as prime Xavi. You know, he's genuinely like, whenever I've seen him play, and granted I've not watched every Luton game in its entirety, but when I've seen him, whether it be through match of the day highlights or extended highlights, or when I have watched live games, he's just controlling that midfield, and it's kind of, yeah, he's not as all action as a prime Jordan Henderson, but he's playing in a tough league in a not a great squad and holding it together in there. Like he's looking the real deal. Now he's kind of like stepped back from that more forward role that he had at Everton and theoretically at Chelsea, even though I think he played about 8 minutes. He's actually like he's putting proper Premier League experience in the middle of the park where they need it. And I've said before, like, Luton have surprised me in the right way. Like, I think even if they do end up going down, I think everyone can agree that the performances that they put together, the way that they've held themselves in the Premier League, you know, as is being said, people are expecting them to go down with a record low points. They've got a lot of League One players in that squad still. Like, they've got players that have come through all the levels with them, and I think like their performances and just like they're not just getting it over the line, like genuinely good performances, genuinely well drilled players playing to like the top of their ability. You know, you can't overlook it, and yeah, like why not have a Ross Barkley in the team? I think there are other midfielders that are just like a bit better or a bit more suited to the way that England would play, or maybe it is just because they are playing for bigger clubs. But like, there's if you're looking at putting Jordan Henderson in there, or if Jordan Henderson's in there, then there is the argument that you should be looking at Ross Barkley just as much. But I think there is better than both of them available to the squad.
I think in my usual, I'm going to give Gareth Southgate a little bit of defence and leeway here, thing that I usually do. I absolutely agree. I think Barkley's been one of the surprise packages of the season. Like, not just Luton, obviously Luton are as a whole, in terms of, I don't think anyone expects them to be just as competitive as they've been, because realistically, I can't think of a game where they've been absolutely trounced. Like some teams, but like, I can't. But you know what I mean. There's been games even though they come up against the likes of City. Like, I think there was a narrow defeat to City at home, and they even took the lead. I think they took the lead, or at least drew level in that game. Obviously, we're in minutes. We're getting a win against Liverpool. We're in a few minutes away getting a point at home to Arsenal. Like, and they put in a pretty spirited performance against Chelsea as well, from what I remember. So like, there's not really been a game where they've been torn to shreds like I think a lot of people thought was going to happen this year, and they've also not just been park 10 players behind the ball and just grind out 0-0s. Like, there are some games that Luton played this year that have been generally exciting to watch. The 4-4 away at Newcastle, springs to mind. They always seem to find themselves in games. And I think on Barkley, whilst I agree that I think if the comparison is Jordan Henderson, then I think he should be in the conversation. I think the one thing that probably stops him is that, even though, like you said, he's probably not that sort of forward as attacking player as he used to be back when he was at Everton, and probably what Chelsea thought they were getting. I just look at the type of player that he is, and I think in terms of being a little bit more creative with the ball, in terms of trying to play that forward pass, I think when you've got players like Jude Bellingham, like Phil Foden, like James Maddison, who are those types of midfielders who are a little bit more versatile than him, and just, like you say, just better. I don't think I don't know if I could necessarily trust Ross Barkley, let's say, as part of a midfield three when you've already got a creator in there, or as part of a double pivot next to a Declan Rice. But that also doesn't mean I want Jordan Henderson doing that role either. I think there are better shouts for that. Like, I know people have been talking about Kobbie Mainoo after his breakout for, obviously, for United this season. I know Southgate has said they're definitely monitoring him, and that would be keeping in touch, like in tune with what Southgate has done since he's been England manager. Like, I think one of the big things he's done is he does seem to have his finger on the pulse in terms of young players coming through.
Well, Jude Bellingham's a perfect example. Like, he was putting him in at 18. Seeing how well he was doing and going, well, he's good enough, so let's play him. So there's nothing to say that a similar thing. Obviously, he's not performing to the same level.
No,
but there's nothing to say that a similar thing couldn't happen to Mainoo, because for United, he's pretty much the first name on the team sheet at the minute. Like, if he's fit, he's playing, and there's a direct correlation between our better performances and him being on the pitch, because he is like just that glue in midfield. Like, not flashy, but just does everything with composure, which I think that England midfield lacks sometimes, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Mainoo does go to the Euros, but I just don't think he'll play loads, because I think this is what he did with Bellingham in the last Euros that it was, when it was during the COVID, like, just sort of coming back of COVID. Like, Bellingham was in the squad. I think he came off the bench in the first game and had a handful of minutes throughout, but I think Southgate took him just to get him used to that tournament environment and being in the England squad. And then obviously the next World Cup, he's playing in pretty much every game. He's Southgate, he can see how ready he is. I think Mainoo will get a similar treatment. But I think Barkley's been, as good as he's been, I just kind of think his time has been and gone for England, and I don't think it's a case that he's playing for Luton just because, like, Southgate called up Phillips when they were in the he's in the Championship with Leeds. Like, I don't think Southgate is as prone to the big club bias as previous England managers have been. I just think he's got his favourites. Yeah, which I've this can obviously be for an episode close to the Euros. I don't think it's necessarily a massive negative, but like I said, I think that's a different. We can go for another 2 hours on Southgate in England, I think. So I think we're probably better saving that for when we get to the summer. So and then that's a whole episode in itself.
We're gonna have the bumper second episode when he signs a contract extension as well.
Yeah, exactly right.
But just before we move on from the Luton thing as well, like, I mean, you've got to give him the flowers, and especially, and I have said it before, and I've said it consistently. I think if Luton do end up going down, I think Rob Edwards gets a job in the Premier League. I think he's shown what a good manager he is to get the performances and to get the results that he's been getting out of this team there's no hiding it. They're not a Premier League quality team in terms of the players, but he's getting them to play like good football. Like you said, like, it's not just everyone behind the ball grind it out. There's some parallels that I can see to when Brentford first came up, where like they're solid, like they've got a lot of like hard-working big guys, but they don't play like tippy tappy football. They get it forward quickly, but it's with an intent. It's with an attacking intent, knowing that they can cause problems. And I do see parallels between the two. I just think Brentford had better quality players to do it with, to be honest.
Yeah,
and that might be the difference, but we'll see.
It's interesting actually. You mentioned that. I think when you talk about, I think when people talk about sort of playing direct football, I think it's different from what it used to be. Like when you had your Tony Pulises and your Sam Allardyces around, where direct football in that context was just lump up to the big bloke up front and sort of hope for the best sort of thing. Whereas now I think it's actually a lot more. You can be defensively solid and difficult to break down, but still be quite exciting going forward. Like it's a throwback to just good counter-attacking football.
Yeah.
Which I think was, like I said, when you had that era of managers for those types of teams, like your Steve Bruce's, like I say, Allardyce, Pulis, all those sort of people, it was just, let's just grind it out for as long as possible and hope that we can, win a flick on the area or win a header or a long throw or something. Whereas now it's not really that anymore. It's like you can be, like I say, a defensively solid team, but still very interesting to watch. And it's interesting actually. I didn't watch the entire game tonight. I basically caught the last 2 goals of the Palace Chelsea game tonight, and obviously Palace are going nowhere very, very quickly under Roy Hodgson, and it's looking likely he won't be there next season. If Luton do go down, I think Rob Edwards would be a perfect replacement in a Crystal Palace. But in terms of what that club's fan base is like and how that club runs, in terms of bringing youth players through, but also like, there are a few Palace fans like it almost feels like they thrive when everyone's singing off the same hymn sheet. And I think Rob Edwards has shown this year he's actually really good at galvanizing not just a group of players, but like an entire fan base as well. And just get everyone on the club singing from the same hymn sheet. I think it'd be, if Luton were to go down, like I think if they stay up, he obviously, I doubt he goes anywhere. But if they were to go down and Palace looking for a manager, I think that'd be a perfect place for him to go to.
Yeah, there's been a few names touted for that Palace job because I like you say, I don't think if they stay, like they're getting dragged quickly into a relegation fight. If they stay up, I don't think Hodgson sticks around anyway. But just to kind of go on from the thing, like to carry on the direct versus hoofball football comparisons, like it's not necessarily. I think it's just talked in different ways because like there are current really successful teams. Liverpool's a perfect example. Yeah. Liverpool are a very direct football team. There's not a lot of sideways passing. There's not a lot of passing. Like it's very like when they were really successful right at the start, it was get it into the channels to the quick wingers so they can get in behind and do cutbacks or smack it in the top corner. Like it's not playing direct isn't a bad thing. Like that, the best United sides always play direct, get the ball forward quickly, get it down the wings or get it into the channels. You've got to do that, and you see with like City do it when they'll do quick breaks. Obviously, they keep hold of the ball a lot more, but they can flick that switch when you've got a Kevin De Bruyne, like who can play pinpoint balls like 30 yards into a channel onto someone's toe. Like you're gonna do it, and like I think having that knowledge of what the difference is between like calculated percentage direct football, like even playing it into the channels and winning second balls, versus hoofball, kicking it up to a big man and hoping you can make it stick. Like they're very different kinds of football, but I think it's just now because everyone's a tactic expert. Like it's kind of all just got lumped into the same thing. Like saying they play direct counter-attacking football means they're crap. Which
they're dinosaur tactics. Sort of thing.
Yeah. It's not like look at the Chelsea team that broke all the records. The reason they overloaded and swamped people so often is because they got the ball and they gave it really quickly to their very fast forward players. You got Arjen Robben and let's not forget prime Damien Duff. Like just streaking down the wing. That was the weirdest thing.
That was great though, wasn't he?
Well, Damien Duff just turned into the best winger in the world for about 3 years. Like it was incredible. Anyway, I digress. We'll get back onto the Twitter questions. Mr. Cookie is coming with one. Another West Ham one. I'm very sorry. If things go in a bad enough direction for West Ham next season, they're looking at a very low finish. Potential losing Paquetá, tied in with Sullivan needing to actually put some money into the club again, and what might be a different manager. They'll get sick of him being useless quite quickly. So I think the main thing is like, if there is a new manager, will they get like the longevity or the time to turn it around that David Moyes seems to, especially when potentially losing Paquetá. I think you're really seeing right now how much you guys miss him, because there's just not anyone else who has that kind of creativity. You've got X factors in Kudus and like players who can make an impact, but when you're looking for someone to break a team down or play that killer ball, like it's just not there. And I think we're really starting to see as good as a finisher as Joe Brown is, he ain't a striker, and losing him off the right or that kind of half space off the right just takes so much away from your team. And I think it just kind of like pushes everything backwards, like because your forward line isn't quite right, your midfield's not quite right, it's making defense not quite right. Yeah, sorry, I've kind of like hijacked the question, but I'll leave it out to you now.
So with it, I think that like I'd like to give, and this is the only time in this podcast I'm going to give David Sullivan a little bit of credit because I'm going to go 2-foot on him in a minute. But like he does, I think Sullivan has been better at backing his manager, especially since Moyes has been here in terms of the money he's been spent up until the January transfer window, which I will get onto later. But like the money he's spent, I think, has been good overall. I think we've not really overpaid for anyone. I don't think and I think, like I say, Moyes has probably been the most backed manager under Sullivan that probably since Allardyce, I'd probably say. In terms of a new manager, I think like if the fans would get sick of a new manager if it didn't work out quite well, or it didn't work out quick, if there was a slow impacts rather than immediate impacts, there's probably some truth in that, and I think that sort of more illustrates how split the fan base is on Moyes in terms of who wants him to stay and who wants him to go. There's also going to be, if a new manager does come in, there's going to be a lot of people outside the club sort of will be ready to sit there and go, told you, be careful what you wish for, all this sort of bollocks that gets bandied about when anyone dares question David Moyes. And yeah, the Paquetá thing, like obviously I know we're not saying him not being available yesterday was the reason yesterday happened, but you are right. It's alarming how just we've got nothing going forward without him. Like
I wasn't really necessarily talking about yesterday. That's kind of like
no,
a lore to itself. But I just mean the last few games, like there just seems to be like a real lack of anything. Like it's all well and good having, like I say, having those forward players like a Kudus and a Bowen and even to that extent like a Souček who can crash the box. Like if you've got people getting into those positions, then who's giving it them? Like
and this is the problem. We let two left wingers go, who granted like both in Fornals and Benrahma, and don't get me wrong, both it was their time to go, like especially Benrahma. I think now you're looking at Fornals and thinking we probably could have done with keeping him around, because he, for all of his faults, his first instinct usually is I'm going to get the ball forward, and it's like, so if he keeps doing it, more often than not he will find someone. But we let two left wingers go, not replace them. We're now playing a fullback at left wing. And our only signing was another defensive midfielder, and we're trying to find a way to crowbar all four of them into the same team, which sometimes means we saw against Bournemouth, Ward-Prowse goes out on the left into that Paqueta role, and Ward-Prowse isn't as good as Lucas Paqueta, so he's not going to be able to do anything. Alvarez has shown at times that he can be get the ball forward and create stuff, but he's a defensive midfielder. And then there's Thomas Souček, who is barely a footballer. So it's like
it's a very different thing on the Alvarez thing. It's a very different thing from getting a ball from your defense or sweeping something up and playing it quickly into a midfield or a winger. It's a very different thing doing that to playing a ball through a line, playing the defensive line and creating goal scoring opportunities.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like the amount of like, and he got this when he was playing for us. There's a criticism of Declan Rice that all he does is play sideways and backwards. I think yesterday showed why maybe those early season claims of like, oh, maybe we're better without Declan Rice. Maybe maybe we're more balanced in midfield and this sort of thing. Maybe it wasn't the case, because I think there was no question who the best midfielder on the pitch was yesterday, and he doesn't play in claret and blue anymore. So. Yeah,
he does get booed though.
Well, I've got on that actually. Before we go into the game, on that, because I've seen a lot of people, prize twat Piers Morgan being one of them, sort of being like, and just Arsenal fans in general being like, oh, I can't understand, like they were booing him loads and all this sort of thing. Just speaking of someone who was actually at the stadium yesterday, like, first of all, I think the boos were mostly pantomime. Do you know what I mean? That's an opposite. As soon as the game started, you're an opposition player, we're going to try and put you off or do anything to affect your performance. But there was a moment, he had a few boos. When they got their first corner, he walked over to take it. Boo started, he applauded, and then the boos very quickly turned into a round of applause for him. And the boos pretty much subsided from that point onwards.
Yeah, I was going to say on that point, like, there's been like a big, I just saw it like kicking off on Twitter and like on clips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when I was watching the game, I never thought it was a thing. Like, it didn't feel like that much of a thing. I thought his celebration or non-celebration was the most awkward thing I've ever seen. Where he was like, "Oh no, really sorry," and then he like went over to the crowd anyway, and then tapped the Arsenal badge. Like, what?
Yeah,
he looked like he didn't know what to do. Like, I'm not criticizing. It must be the most awkward fucking like.
Well,
situation.
You think as well. It's one of the best goals he's ever scored. Yeah. like, do you know what I mean? So it's
Absolute
like it's definitely mixed emotions. We had this when we played him in the cup, and we had this when we played him in the league, especially in the cup because it was the first time he came back. And TalkSport turned into a whole debate of like, is he going to get booed? Like, because that's apparently what you want from pre-match analysis is whether or not a player's going to get booed or not. But that's TalkSport for you. But like I say, I think there are
lost when they couldn't make it about United. To be honest, like
yeah, to be fair, but like I think there are definitely there. I'm not saying there isn't a section of the fan base who generally aren't happy with the fact that he left and think that he has been either disingenuous or disrespectful in the way that he left. I don't personally. I think in terms of a player leaving a club to move on to pastures new, I think he's and bear in mind some of the players that have left West Ham in the past and done it in less professional ways, like or respectful ways, like Dimitri Payet, Marko Arnautovic, just to name two off the top of my head. Like, he's done it in the most respectful way possible. Never once said, I want to leave publicly. Whenever asked about it, like, you got to remember, he was asked about his future minutes after winning his first major trophy. And, like, BT were like, oh, so are you leaving? Are you staying? And he just went, I've got 2 years left of my contract. We'll see what happens. But as of right now, I'm a West Ham player. And it said all the right things and has behaved in the best way possible. And I think, like I said, the reaction I saw in the stadium yesterday is I think there is that appreciation of that from the majority of the fan base, and like the fact that he got a big round of applause when he came off, we got subbed off, and again didn't have to do it when the game finished. So obviously he was on the bench by this point. Rather than going straight over to the Arsenal ends, he walked around the entire stadium and clapped all the home fans. Like,
yeah,
the guy clearly loves the club still, but you can see. I think if anything, yesterday is a prime sort of reason. It's like, well, yeah, that's why he had to go, because look at the difference. Like, look at the trajectories of both clubs, and whilst let's not. This is very important. He has only won 1 trophy, and that is with West Ham. He's not won anything with Arsenal yet, but like he's obviously got a better chance of winning more at Arsenal, even if it's just a few FA Cups. But you know, his chances are heightened, whether or not it's actually going to happen. But yeah, the whole Arsenal fans getting offended that like we're booing him and stuff is just like what you've got. Why do you care? Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's just Arsenal fans, isn't it? You know.
Yeah,
they'll find any reason to claim to be a victim.
Yeah, basically.
Well, shall we, as we've already kind of started discussing it, shall we move on to the game? Yeah. I did actually watch the game, and I tweeted out, or I replied to one of your tweets actually. I said, I don't think I've ever seen, bearing in mind, I've seen David Moyes teams get pasted before.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a David Moyes coach team look so out of sorts defensively. Like, just not even poorly drilled, like just really basic stuff. Not following a man, a completely free man at the back post. Was it the Gabriel header or was it the Saliba one where he went over to Declan Rice, basically said, "Put it on my head," ran to the back post. Nobody followed him, and he headed it in. Like,
yeah, it was the first goal. That was the first goal. Yeah,
it was the first one. It was insane. Like, just people not doing things and just a complete. And I think this might be like the first step in. Like, Moyes definitely can't stick around because nobody looked like they were actually even once they'd gone a couple of goals down. Granted, there was some decent bits of Arsenal play, but people just stopped. Everyone just stopped, and it only didn't go to 7 or 8 because Arsenal stopped.
Yeah,
like they went, we can take a foot off the gas. As said, you can bring on El Neni, who's just got back from an AFCON and a child, and not even be worried about it. It was the most apathetic kind of display that I've seen from a Moyes West Ham team. Because even when you've lost games, you usually put in effort and usually try, and it's usually just beaten by the better team. I don't even think Arsenal had to be particularly good yesterday.
No,
or on Saturday.
No,
whenever it was.
I don't think they got our first gear. Like, I've seen people say it's the best Arsenal performance of the season. But I've seen Arsenal play better than that. It's not to say they were bad, obviously, but like they didn't have to get out of. They didn't have to break a sweat to lay a glove on us. I don't really know where to start with it, really, because I've seen, like you said, I've seen West Ham games under Moyes where we've been pasted. It's happened twice already this season, you know, but that's usually come down to like individual mistakes across the entire pitch rather than like a total breakdown of the entire team as a whole, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like yesterday was the alarming thing for me was because there was if I can be positive for a minute, there was it was 0-0. I think it was we got through the first 10 minutes. Arsenal looked really, really dangerous, and we couldn't get out of our own box. And then the following sort of 5 to 10 minutes after that, we had a bit of a go. I think there was a moment Emerson and Johnson linked up well down the left, and we got a corner out of it, and crowd sort of got up a little bit. And then we just couldn't get the ball back off them. And then once the first goal went in, it was like we just completely imploded. Like, and then the second, obviously, Saka times his run really well, and Areola kind of has to foul him. Like, he doesn't really have it, he knows he's not going to get sent off for it, so he has to foul him. And we just crumbled. And I sort of think about this as the game was going on. So I don't usually when we lose games that heavily, I don't know how much blame I can attribute to the manager. Do you know what I mean? Because when it's a performance that's that bad, if anything, the more of a spotlight for me goes on the players. But with that being said, Moyes picked the team. Like, Kurt Zouma has been dreadful for the best part of a month now. He's got one working leg. Like, he can't run. He can barely walk. He kicks cats, so he's a bit of a knob anyway. Like, I'm going to dig that in him. But, like, he still picked him. Ben Johnson, the baffling thing, Ben Johnson wasn't even that bad at playing as right mid or against United the previous week. Wasn't terrible. He quietened down a lot, though, when he moved him out to the left-hand side in the second half. So Moyes started him on the left-hand side in this game. And Naya Figueres just looking like he's never played a minute of Premier League football in his life before. Like, no defensive awareness, or even football for that matter. No awareness of what's going on around him. No, like, I'm watching Kurt Zouma and Naya Figueres lose headers to Bukayo Saka and Leandro Trossard, like, consistently. Like, that's...
You shouldn't even have to jump.
Yeah, like, that's insane. And, like, you think about what a David Moyes team is meant to be. Like, that shouldn't be happening under any manager, let alone a manager who is meant to be sets up a team to be well organised, defensively solid, difficult to break down. Like, it's like you said, it's alarming, and it's in terms of what it could mean for his future. I think on Zuma, I've got to say as well, the decision with every week, especially in the last month, I was never sold on the idea at the beginning of the season. And maybe I'm being a bit emotional after yesterday. I'm willing to put Kurt Zouma as the worst captain I've ever seen at West Ham. Like, genuinely. I was thinking about it today. I'm thinking, okay, we've had in the past, we've had Declan Rice, we've had Martin, we've had Kevin Nolan, Scott Parker, Matt Upson wasn't great, but, you know, we had Nigel Reo-Coker, who at that era was a really good captain for us. Like Christian Daly, if I'm going even further back, Christian Daly, Joe Cole. I can't put Zuma above any of those. I don't. And that was the other alarming thing for me yesterday, just the complete lack of leadership all over the pitch. And it's not just from Zuma, even though he is the captain. I think, like, there's moments where I'm looking at him thinking, you should be in the referee's ear at this point, or you should be talking to your defenders, trying to organise them. And he just, something bad goes, right? He just walks off. Oh, well, it's another one's gone in. We'll go again. But, like, Thomas Souček's the captain of his national side and was captain of Slavia Prague. Silent. James Ward-Prowse was Southampton captain for how many years? Nothing. Like, Jared Bowen's been here long enough. Like, where's the communication? Where's someone grabbing hold of them, going, "What the fuck are we doing? Like, we're better than this. Let's try and play for a bit of professional pride here." Yeah, it's like I said earlier. Sold 2 left wingers in the window. Didn't replace them. We had to play a right-sided fullback at left wing for the entire game, even though there's a left winger on the bench in Maxwell Cornet, which again begs the question: why on earth do we keep him around when the manager clearly does not want to use him? Like, that is, in terms of, like, recruitment, just football suicide in the way we handled that transfer window and the way Sullivan, you know, scuppered the deal for the left winger that everyone in the recruitment team, including the manager, apparently wanted. And yeah, it's just a fucking shambles, basically. And it's gone from being, and look, we are only 8th, so it could be a lot worse. I know that, but it's gone from being it feels like all the positivity from this season has just sort of just been drained out, or not even drained, kicked out of us. Like, And it's I don't really I think it's difficult. And again, you're coming off the back of a really bad result. It's obviously going to be the case, and it would be the most typical West Ham thing in the world to go and batter Nottingham Forest next weekend, and everything's back to normal, and we'll go on a run. But I say after it's not even the result. Just after a performance like that, it's difficult to see where the positives are going to come from. Yeah, just a mess.
Yeah, after the early season positive, it's like, let's not forget, I had a really good start to the season. Things were looking up. Like one of the big takeaways that I got from yourself was like, you just didn't want this to be a season where there was a nothing season because you're just waiting for Moyes to leave at the end of the season. And it didn't start out like that way. Like things look positive, some really good results. Obviously, like flying really high in the league, like looking like you might be on for automatic European spots. But it's just fallen off a cliff. Like the last month or two. Performances, like attitudes, obviously, like player availability hasn't helped. But at the same time, you know, it's not like West Ham are a team that are short on cash. It's not like West Ham are a team that have only been up in the Premier League for 2 or 3 years. They've got a draw. They've got money to spend. Yeah, they invested money in the summer, but only what they sold. It's not like any extra money was actually put into the team. So yeah, it's a concern from the outside looking in. Obviously, like I have no dog in the. I don't hate West Ham. I don't love West Ham. Like I've got a few friends, yourself included, who are West Ham fans, so I kind of keep an eye on what's going on with them. And as a big English club, big British club, like, you know, you want to see them doing well. I'd rather see West Ham do well than numerous other London clubs. But yeah, it's a concern, and I can understand the frustration from your end.
It's one of them where it's like you say about the money, for example, and this is where I'm going to go on to Sullivan, because I think, and this only is why I spoke about this a lot on my stream last night. And there's a really good thread on Twitter by Jacob Steinberg. He's a West Ham fan. He's also a writer for The Guardian. Did a really, really good thread after the game yesterday, sort of just summing up everything, really. What basically the conversation amongst fans all season is basically, you're Moyes in, you're Moyes out, you're Moyes in, you're Moyes out. Like, it's not as straightforward as David Moyes goes in the summer and all of a sudden we're better off for it, because David Sullivan owns the football club. And despite the fact, like I said, I'll give him his credit. I think in the time Moyes has been back, he's backed him well. I felt like he has, and he's arguably Moyes has wasted a lot of Sullivan's money, like in terms of.
Well, I was just about to say maybe too well, maybe giving him too much of like carte blanche on stuff.
Big money on Skamaka. Could obviously injuries played a part. There is definitely an argument that Moyes could have done more to make that work, but it didn't work out. £35 million on Nikola Vlasic was sold for 10 million 2 years later after a loan spell. But this is the problem. You'd think it would all change when we hire a technical director in Tim Steidten, who, like you said, some people see him as like this messiah, the potential messiah, and I get it, because it's not Sullivan in control of the transfers and stuff, and it's a step in the right. Just the hiring of a technical director is a step in the right direction for West Ham in terms of how it's been run in previous years, which has been a bit of a circus. And Steiden's already shown this in the summer. Whilst I don't think he was solely responsible for identifying, because I could identify Mohamed Kudus as a good signing. Do you know what I mean? But like he or Edson Alvarez, but like he clearly had a big hand in the negotiations and got them to the club. Like Kudus has gone on record to say, I could have gone to Chelsea. I chose to go to West Ham. And Steiden had a big part to play in that. So
still
he's
looks like the right decision, to be honest.
Absolutely. Kudus isn't playing right back for Chelsea. I think but like, so it felt like we were moving in the right direction that year. But then the January rolls around, and it's like I said, I don't know whether this Ibrahim Osman kid, who is now just signed to join Brighton in the summer, is going to be a well-be, or he might be a flop. We don't know. That I always say every transfer is a risk at the end of the day, even if it's Calvin Phillips will look like a banker, right? He was going to come in and be great for us. His first 2 games have been a bit of a disaster for him. Like, just looking at the bare sort of face of it. So no transfer is guaranteed to work out. Just like no transfer is guaranteed to be a flop just because I don't have Premier League experience. But that was someone that Mark Noble, sporting director, and David Moyes all agreed on that, yeah, this kid looks really, really good. And this looks like the left winger that we need in the team. Let's go and get him. And an agent friend of David Sullivan whispers in his ear, I think you're paying a bit too much for him. He goes, oh, okay, and just pulls the plug on it. And it's stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's like, if that's going to happen, even after you've brought in someone that you're apparently delegating the recruitment to, and delegating the overseeing this new infrastructure at the club, we bring all these scouts in, these data analysts in. If you're still going to undermine him, and he's the guy you brought in, you're still going to undermine him. How do you think it's going to go if we do bring in a higher profile manager or a, I saw a news report today saying that we're now backtracking on giving Moyes a new contract. Oh, and apparently, high profile managers are interested in the job. Well, high profile manager, people talk in football. People know what David Sullivan's like. So the reason why I'm still torn on whether or not I think I want Moyes gone at the end of the year, but I'm not blind enough to not see the potential negatives of him going, because it's, out of every manager we've ever had, he's the one who's gotten the best results under Sullivan. And maybe he is just that stability that Moyes will offer. Whilst the football can be absolutely dire at times, he's shown what he can do in terms of getting positive results. And I don't know if a higher profile manager or a manager with higher standards is gonna. He might just get sick of Sullivan after 8 months and go, I'm not sticking around to work for this circus. If I can't even get the technical, can't even get the players that in to improve the team, what's the point? When I could go to an Aston Villa or a Brighton or a Newcastle where those obstacles aren't in place already. So it's like I said, I think end of the season. I don't think you should sack him now. It's you won't get anyone in. I don't think you get anyone in. And we're still in the Europa League, so you might as well give him that. But it does seem to me that unless there is a big turnaround in form, I don't think they'll offer him a contract next season. But again, show some. If you're the owner of a football club, you've got to show some bollocks. If you're going to back him and not and keep him after the Conference League win, you give him a contract. You don't go, oh, we'll let you enter your final year and then we'll see how it goes. No, you want him to stick around. You give him an extra 2 years. Or if you want to still change direction, as hard a decision that will be after winning the cup, you go, thanks very much, David. Appreciate everything you've done for us. However, we are going to move in a different direction. We can't ignore the league form this year. Love the cup win, but we still think it's time for a different direction. And I say it's just complete lack of leadership from the top downwards. And maybe that's why Moyes, it might be a better decision to keep him long term. But then you also risk alienating the fan base by doing that, because so many are pissed off how the style of football is. So
yeah, and if you do that, then are you just determined to follow the same path every season? Like there's just the same thing. You just feel like it's a repeatable thing. It's like there'll be periods of good performances. It's either like it's peaks and troughs. Like there's never never feels like there's consistent kind of good, solid performances, decent results. Like winning 2, drawing 1 in 5. It's either you're winning 5 in 5 or losing 5 in 5. It's kind of like a little bit like Man United this season, to be honest. Like it's just absolute peaks or absolute troughs.
Yeah.
And at some point, I think a well-run club would go, yeah, it's time to go. Like we need a change. Like rather than waiting until it is the absolute, like scraping the barrel, oh shit, we're in a relegation fight, or like we're finishing bottom 7 like 3 years in a row, and then doing it once you've lost all your best players and lost the draw and lost the money. Why wait that long? Why not see what's on the horizon and go, it's time to actually make that change?
Yeah. When you get to that point, you hire David Moyes. Do you know what I mean? To get you back to that point. So it's like there's nothing wrong with changing manager when you think he's at his ceiling and you think he's got us in this position. We want to try and go a little bit further. Maybe there's someone who can sort of who can deliver that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't necessarily want an attack-minded manager. Do you know what I mean? But I want to watch games and think, yeah, we actually are trying to win this. There's been a lot of games this year where I felt like that's not really been the case, despite the results we have managed to pull out. Yeah, I thought I'd get more angry talking about it. Now I'm just sad. I will. Before we move on to it, to the other games, though, I do just want to sort of end on this. Just a general moan at the footballing public, basically, because I saw a lot of how can I describe it? A lot of sanctimonious bullshit on Twitter yesterday at halftime when obviously a large chunk of the stadium left.
Oh, I was going to ask, did you stay till the end?
I did. Do you know why? Because I thought I sat there at 5-0, and I think this is because it was 6 on 65. So it got to the hour, I think it was 5-0, and I was like, thing is, if I go now, Stratford's gonna be really busy.
Yeah.
Like the state. So if I stay to the end, I go straight through the station.
Yeah.
So it might be easier for me. So no, I ended up staying to the end just because, yeah. Like I said, when the rice goal went, I just started laughing. Do you know what I mean? Because it was just like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is the cherry on top of this absolute shit cake that has been served up today. That the former captain rocks up and scores again the best goal he's ever scored. Like, oh, incredible. But yeah, I saw a lot because obviously I was by that point I'm not watching the game. I'm just on my phone, like just reading through what people are saying. The amount of people who I saw being like, "Oh, you know, it can never be me." I don't know about you. I could never. I support my team through thick and thin. You'd never see me leaving before full time, even if it was 6 or 7-0 down. I'd never leave.
Thick and thin is supporting your team regardless of where you are in the league or what league you're in. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not deciding I don't want to watch any more of this on a particular game.
Yeah. It's the easy. I think I said on Twitter yesterday. It's the easiest thing in the world to have that, to point the finger and have that sort of opinion when you're just sat on your ass on your sofa watching it on Sky Sports. When especially when it's a team you don't support and you're not. When it's like Man City fans saying it, and I'm like, yeah, but you're never going to be in this situation unless you get docked down to League Two. Like,
it's not like they turn up to the stadium anyway. So
very true. But you know what I mean. And it's just like like Chris Sutton, I think, because obviously because he's a knob, but he came out and saying like, "Oh, real football fans stay till the end," and I'm like, well, I'm not being funny. I've paid, and not just me. A lot of people pay a lot of money to go football these days. It's not just ticket prices for that game against Arsenal would have been about 60 quid cheapest ticket. Like that's before you factor in every other weekend there's train strikes, so it's not easy for everyone to just get into Stratford. It's a fucking nightmare. Well, not a nightmare. It's a pain in the ass to get to the stadium from the station anyway. The food's expensive. The beer's expensive. The stadium's not great for a lot of people. A lot of people don't enjoy watching football in that stadium. And like I said, with the travel, there's a bloke next to me who I sit next to. He's about 80 odd, right? I got chatting to him at the Bournemouth game. Bear in mind there was train strikes on that day. He lives up near Birmingham. And he was like, I left at 10 o'clock this morning. Like, I hope I get back all right because of the train strikes. I'm like, if he wants to fuck off early, he's more than welcome to.
Yeah.
If we're 4-0 down, because the amount of money he's forking out to come and watch the team completely capitulate, not put the effort in, and be 6-0 down just after an hour into a game. Like I said on Twitter yesterday, just people just need to get off their high horses because it's like as if it will make a difference. What if everyone's stuck to the end, we'd have come back on 7-6? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't understand the criticism of it. Like you say, people pay good money and put their own time into it. Do what you want. You can buy a ticket and not turn up for all I care. Like, you know, you can do what you want with that opportunity to go and watch a football match. And like you say, it's not like you were 3-0 down. It's like, oh, but we've had a load of bad luck, 3 or 4-0 down, like loads of bad luck. Like they were gifted a penalty, something's gone off someone's arse. But we look at the races; it's just not been coming off for us. It looked like the players would have left at half time if they could have done. So at that point, why would like 60,000 people all of them want to stick around as well?
Yeah.
You know, it's a two-way street. Like, yeah, you know, players feed off the fans, but if the players aren't giving the fans anything to shout about, then why would they be there? Why would they be shouting?
Yeah,
it's
no, 100%.
I'm with you on it. It's just it is just people looking for clicks on social media. It's looking for laying that fish out there and seeing who bites.
Yeah. Then I nibbled.
Yeah.
I ate good.
Yeah. It's yeah. Well, speaking of, I said earlier, like it was a differing result for both of our teams. A game that I, as a United fan, was dreading, to be honest, going away to Aston Villa. Even though recently they've not been at their best, neither have we. So, it was one of those things where, like, I can just see this being one of those games where Villa cement their top four. Because if they'd have won, it's been publicised a load. They'd have gone 11 points ahead of Man United.
Yeah.
They'd have stayed in fourth ahead of Spurs, and they'd have pretty much nailed on what looks like it might be a Champions League finish in the top 5. unless there's a massive capitulation from Spurs, which can happen, and
yes,
hopefully will.
History suggests.
Yeah. It was a massive result for us, that, and I think in the fullness of time, if we can just kind of keep getting results like this, it might be the turning point of the season. Like I've said it before, we didn't have the best of first halves of the season last year. It was better than this first half of the season, but I think we're only like 4 or 5 points behind where we were at the same point last year.
Okay.
And we had a really good 2-month run where we basically just won everything, won every game we went into, and there is a bit of hope from myself and quite a lot of United fans that if we can just get that couple of months of really good performances, really good results. Bearing in mind we're not in Europe anymore, we've got 1 game a week. I don't know what's happened to Luke Shaw. Hopefully that's not a big injury, because it was chalk and cheese between when he was on the pitch yesterday. So that's a concern that I'll go into a little bit more depth in a bit. But 2-1 away from home against a very good Villa side was just a massive result, and it was good to see some good performances from some maligned players. I thought Onana was mega yesterday, making there was. Gary Neville was trying to play some of it down. It's oh well, it's hit him. It's well, yeah, he's got to be there though. If the keeper being in the way of a shot is a bad thing, then that's the point of a goalkeeper. You're getting in the way of the shots. But a few really good saves. There was a couple of hairy moments, but there's also some really good bits of kind of, he's playing out from the back and his clearing could have been a little bit better. But there was some bits where he snuffed things out before they even started, like that, doing a proper sweeper keeper job. Because we were struggling with those balls in behind. I thought he was mega yesterday. I've got to give Harry Maguire his props as well. I thought we played a game that really suited him, where we were sitting a bit deeper and looking to hit on the break and defend our box, and that's his game. He's great at that. It's just that I don't think the plan A at United is that. I think that was the thing that was forced upon us due to availability of personnel. But he did a great job. I can't kind of take anything away from him. I thought Dalot looked mega again. I think he's just getting better. Mainu as well in midfield again just looked really composed. But it wasn't a great performance from us. I thought we took our chances. It was a decent goal from Højlund. He's got 5 in 5 now, so he looks like he's motoring a bit. And as Cameron Hewitt says, United don't need a striker to back up Højlund. They've got Scott McTominay. I hate how clutch Scott McTominay is.
Yeah.
He's just got this horrific knack of getting... Don't get me wrong, it's great to have in the team, but my concern is that because he keeps getting these clutch goals off the bench in the last 10 minutes, which I think he's great at. I've said before, if you want a bit of chaos, someone who's going to be a bit of a physical presence against the tiring backline, Scott McTominay's your guy. My concern is when he scores a few goals, it seems like Erik ten Hag goes, all right, well, let's play him from the start.
Yeah.
Just not paying attention to the fact that him playing in midfield massively weakens the control of a game that we can have. And I thought in the first half, when we had Luke Shaw in there, who again I think we miss massively. I think it's gone a bit under the radar how much we missed him until he came back. I think his runs in behind, I think defensively he's really solid. He keeps the line well. He keeps his flank really quiet. You saw it when Lindelof came on. Villa just went attack the left back because Luke Shaw's not there now. Just attack down the left and we'll get chances. That's where all the chances were coming from. But not only that, but there's not many better fullbacks at those late breaking runs beyond the winger, getting into the box, chopping the ball and back into the edge of the 6-yard box. And because he's so good at that, it opens up space for Marcus Rashford. When he's making runs, it takes another man. When leaving Rashford one-on-one with anyone, I'd back him when he's in his swagger to get past him most times.
Yeah.
And
I think Luke Shaw's one of the best left backs in Europe. Comfortably.
Yeah.
On his day, I think I think he in general just goes under the radar. Whenever I see him play for United, he's so important. I
think the Mourinho comments still hang over him. Everyone thinks, so. There's that. My worry with him is it looks like the consistent little niggling injuries are coming back.
Yeah.
He went through, obviously he had that horrific injury. It took him it took a few years to come back from that. He had a really good run of form, and then he had about 2 years where he was just constantly out for a week or two, or missing 2 or 3 games. So he never got into the rhythm of stuff. And I think he's that kind of player that needs a constant run of games to be at his best. Like, he's quite a thick lad, isn't he? Like, I think he needs that week in, week out match fitness. But also, like, he's on a lot of money, and if he is undoubtedly the first choice left back at that club, so you're not going to be able to bring someone else in to be a backup to him. Where you go, if Luke Shaw gets injured, then you're going to play, and I think it might be a really big decision this summer, because I think he's got 2 years left on his deal after this year. He's 28 or 27, 28. It might be the year where we go, let's move him on. Like, this might be the year where it's the right time to move him on. Just not because I don't think he's a good guy, not because I don't think he's a good player, because, like you say, on his day, I think he's one of the best left backs in Europe. I think it's just that we can't rely on you. Like, you've got to be if you're that important to the team, you've got to be reliable to be available. It's the same thing with Paul Pogba. Like, that was his issue. Is when he's on it, he was great. He could put in great performances, but the space between those performances, whether it be through injuries or missing games or having off periods, like he's a very different personality. But I think it's a very similar kind of thing. This guy's on a massive wedge. He's got to be starting when he plays. He is on his day brilliant, but those brilliant days are getting fewer and further between because his body's just giving up a little bit.
Well, the best comparison with that is Reece James, right? Like, Reece James is the best comparison with that. Like, it's getting to a point now, and I think it's probably going to affect Luke. It's probably affected Luke Shaw as well, in that, because, like you say, on their day they are so good. And I think this summer Chelsea rectified a little bit by bringing in Gusto, but for years Chelsea never went and bought another right back because, when Reece James is back, he'll be back for a few games, and then his hamstring will go again, and then you won't see him for another.
Or he might be fine for an entire season, and this guy who you've told that he's going to play half the game isn't playing any games because he's not. It's
incredibly difficult. Yeah, it's incredibly difficult, especially when you haven't got European football where you can rotate.
Yeah.
Like, you can say to Luke Shaw, okay, look, we're not going to play you in the group games, or we'll play you in the group games, but if there's a Premier League game the weekend before, we'll play, whoever. It's probably why it's easier if you have someone from the academy. Obviously, I know you had Brandon Williams like a few years ago, but obviously that ship's long sailed. But, like, yeah, it's a difficult one when you have a player like that. We've had it. We had it with Antonio for years as well. It's like, can't get another striker in, when Antonio's fit, he plays. It's like,
it's the Harry Kane thing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. There's clubs all over Europe have got players like that, and it's like you say, maybe in that instance, the best thing to do is just to let that player go, so you're not, pardon the pun, hamstrung by having that one player you're so reliant on, but it's just never available.
Yeah, I think whilst we've had other decent left backs, like I think Malacia showed that he's a perfectly decent left back.
Forget about him. Yeah.
He's just been injured all year. He had to have a couple of knee surgeries. I think he had a knee surgery, and then I think he had a complication with it when he was coming back. It was either knee or an ankle or something. So he's been gone for a while, and he's perfectly serviceable, like, reserve to that. And I think if he had been fit this entire time, I don't think it'd have been that much of an issue, because you're not rushing to get players back. You're not getting them back into the team as quick. You can, if Luke Shaw needs a game off, you can give him a game off. Whereas I think at the minute, it's kind of like when Rashford came back from that injury. It's like we need him in the team as soon as possible, because we are half the team without him. And maybe it is a case of look to move him on, let him kind of maybe go to a team where there is a bit more cover or a bit less reliance on him, so he's not as kind of redlining all the time, not on that injury threshold all the time, and maybe it gives us the opportunity to invest in a couple of left backs with potential and go that way. Like, it's the old Football Manager argument, and it's like you got when your players in 28, 29, you start looking at how many games he's available for every year. Like, he's only played 20 games this year. Maybe I sell him for 60 million.
He's on a lot of wages.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask. I'll be honest. I didn't watch the game yesterday because I was too busy screaming into a pillow. But it's something I have heard about the game, that United weren't really at their best. I'm not going to say fortunate to win, but from the sounds of it, Villa had quite a few chances, and United rode the luck at times. And it's something that I've heard you talk about with regards to United results quite a bit this season. And I'm just asking this from the perspective of, like, we were talking about Moyes earlier, and I think there was an argument at the start of the season where we were giving up a lot of chances. Areola was performing miracles and keeping us in games, and we would go on to, I'll say nick a game. We would just catch teams out on the break or whatever, and that's how we win games. But I think there was an argument from the sort of people who were more against Moyes was, well, how sustainable can this really be? Because eventually your luck might run out, or you'll play a team who is just going to be much more clinical and will punish you.
You trend towards the norm more often than not.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess my question is do you think this is the plan for the rest of the season in terms of this, how you're going to try and get enough points to try and get further out of the table? Or if there is this plan 8 you're speaking of, have you seen evidence that Ten Hag is capable of implementing that plan A and having it working on a more consistent basis?
For me, one of my big criticisms of Ten Hag previously, and it's the thing that was touted for ages, the whole record against the top 9 or top 8 or whatever Sky want to paint it as. It's always been, there's a plan A and we play the same way every game. Be home or away, doesn't matter on the kind of team we're playing against. It doesn't matter the kind of players that are available. Kind of always try and play the same way. I think what he's shown in the past few months, and I'd put the game against yourselves, Villa, the Wolves game, the end of the Wolves game, where that was just chaos. But we've had the game against Spurs and things like that, where I think we've set up slightly differently in different games. I think he's using his squad a little bit more. I think he's using tactical flexibility a little bit more. And whilst, I don't think we've been as good as we have been at times, I think we're playing the game status better. We're playing the way that the game needs to be played. It's being controlled a lot better. Yeah, we weren't at our best yesterday, but I think we were on top for more than we were under the cosh. I think there was we were really good for the first half for the most part. I think once Luke Shaw came off and we had to make some personnel changes, we sat a little bit deeper. There was a lot more attacks coming down that left hand or the Villa right hand side. We were getting a lot of look for it. And whilst the subs that when I saw him making the subs, I didn't quite understand them. Ultimately, it solidified the game a little bit, and we ended up winning it. In terms of the chances in the match, Onana had to make some really good saves, but I think United also missed some really good chances. I think in terms of a draw, I think would have been a fair result, but I think had either team have nicked it, I don't think you could really argue it. It's just more that we're coming out of this game, which is a really important game against a team that's played really well at a tough place to go at Villa. Coming away with a 2-1 win, I'll never turn my nose up at that.
Oh yeah, no, of course.
But the is it a consistent thing? I'm hoping that the ability to change the way that we manage games in game, rather than just setting up at the start and sticking with that the entire time. I think that's a lot more. I think it's a better thing going forward. I think it's going to be a lot more beneficial in the long run for us. My concern is just of player availability. The entire time we've been saying, when we get Martinez and Shaw back, it's going to look a different team. We've had them back for 2 games and they look great, and now they're gone again. It's okay, well, I guess we'll figure out how to get it done. The upside is it looks like the players in the final third that weren't performing have started to click a little bit now. Rashford, whilst he's not the Rashford of the back end of last year, he's looking a bit more confident. He's taking people on. He probably could have had a goal or an assist yesterday. Probably should have done. I think Bruno Fernandes is playing not as reckless a game, because I think what he does a lot is I think he very much takes I'm the creative hub. I have to create the chances, because he takes a lot of that on his shoulders, and I think instead of it, I think what he does is he just tries more and more speculative passes. Casemiro, actually, yesterday was terrible for it. He was trying the Hollywood ball every time. And I think when a solid kind of just sideways pass it through the thirds thing would have been way better. He was trying the Hollywood ball from off the edge of his own, on his left foot near his own penalty box to try and get it in behind. And to be fair, he wasn't far off. I think 5 yards shorter and Højlund had been on it, I think. But it's stop doing that. Not every ball needs to be that. And, And I think Bruno is really bad for that as well. But but it does come off a fair amount of times. But he's way better when we can get it into the final third, and he can find those quick little interchanges and bits of play and slide through balls. And it seems like he's playing a little bit more reserved at the minute, which is better. It means he's not as chaotic. Hoyland's fine in the back of the net. I think Garnacho on that right hand side might actually be the answer for our right hand side issues.
Yeah.
Granted, he's still really young, still makes some questionable decisions at times. But I think off that right hand side, because he can go either way, like the defenders genuinely don't know which way he's going to go. Whereas I think on the left, it's fairly evident he's going to try and cut inside. But he's been really good. So hopefully, if we can just kind of like keep the solidity, have those front players kind of start to click a little bit, and Andre Onana, remember that he's got hands, like, you know, which is a big question. Like, I think we could have a decent season end of the season. Like, we could go on a bit of a run. Our fixtures aren't the worst coming up. Like I say, we're only playing like a game a week at the minute. We got Luton, Fulham, and Forest in the cup for the rest of February. So it's a good chance to like turn the screw a little bit. We've had three good results, not necessarily three great performances. Because I think it was similar to you guys. Like when we played you guys, I said I don't think we were great. I think we just took our chances. But that's what we need. We don't need to be battering teams and looking like prime Barcelona. If we can take the chances that we create and stop the chances going in at the other end, then we'll win more games than we'll lose. And I think if we can do that against Luton and Fulham and Forest, get through to the next round of the cup, get 6 more points on the table. Because after that, in I think March, we've got the Manchester derby, which is obviously we're probably going to lose that. We're away at City. Like, you know, you've almost got to just be happy with 2
write it off.
Happy with 0 points. You know, I'll be happy we come up with this with a loss. Because support the fixtures there. Yeah, the rest of the month, Everton, Sheffield United, and Brentford, like 3 winnable games. Like, it could be a case of maybe this is the time where we get a little bit of a charge, get a little bit of consistency, get some goals on the board, like, and make those teams in 4th and 5th sweat a bit, you know, like we've had, if you'd listen to the media, if you listen to radio shows or social media, the worst time that Man United have had in their history, and we're somehow still only like a few points off the top 4 with a favourable run of games. Maybe we can have a decent second half of the season. I certainly live in hope.
I've definitely just stopped listening to pundits and stuff and radio shows and whatnot, just because it's different, obviously different scenario entirely. But I was bring it back to Moyes a little, like just very quickly. Like I was, I think I was listening to the rest of his football. That was it. And Alan Shearer, and it's a common thing. Alan Shearer was going like, yeah, like they lost 6-0, but I think they're in good hands with David Moyes. Like I think they're never going to be better than they are now. So might as well stick with him. I'm just like, well, you have him at Newcastle then. Yeah. Like it's that thing of like it's. Either certain managers are really protected, it feels like, by certain parts of the media, and certain clubs or managers are it can be a bit of a free for all. And it's kind of like, well, actually, every manager should be open to the same amount of criticism or praise, depending on what sort of season they're having, sort of thing. But
every manager should be fearful of their job if they're not reaching certain expectations. And like that, I hear that argument a lot with other managers as well. It's like, oh well, you know, who's going to do any better? It's like, well, maybe someone will. Like tell that to Villa fans 3 years ago. It's like, well, you know, you can't get rid of Dean Smith. He's got you back in the Premier League, really solid. Like you can't be sacking him. Granted, it went really badly with Steven Gerrard, but they've ended up with a really good manager now who's pushing them into European positions. It's like you can't just kind of expect every team to sit in their little hole for eternity. And it's ironic, Shearer saying that, because Newcastle did exactly that thing of getting rid of that manager when they needed to get rid of, getting the right players in, and having a really good season, and like
I know,
pushing for it. I do feel like they've trended a little bit back to the norm this year. I feel like they had a great 18 months, overperformed massively, but I think at the start of the season, I think Newcastle are going to get found out because their squad's so small and the amount of games they've got to play. Maybe it'll be similar with to United in the second half of the season, because they've got fewer games to play now. They can get a few players back fit, get a bit of training under the belt. Maybe they can find that consistency and performance again. but I think it's been a real rude awakening this year, especially with the news that they might have to sell one or two of their big names to balance the
Oh
books.
yeah.
I think that'd be terrible for them.
Mate, if I have to sell Alexander Isak, that is a disaster. He's on his he's got his injury issues, but on his day, he's one of the best strikers in the Premier League for me. I really like Alexander Isak. I think he's fantastic.
He's one of the most dynamic strikers in the Premier League. Like definitely,
Absolutely.
He's in terms of he can hurt you in so many different ways. Like he's similar to Ollie Watkins for me. Like I think this season, like he can run in behind, he can drop deep, he can play make, he can beat a man, he can win a header. Like he's just got so many facets to his game. Like you say, injuries is just his issue. But again, maybe it's one of those things of, like I was saying with Luke Shaw, like maybe you cash in while his stock's high, and see what you can do with the money. But it's one thing to make the decision; it's another thing to have the decision forced upon you, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
But anyway, I think we've exhausted the Man United talk there. Like we've had an all right performance and won our game. We'll I'll have a meltdown, I'm sure, when we get battered by City. A couple of the games. Speaking of City, City with a 2-0 win against Everton. Haaland feels like it's really weird. It feels like Erling Haaland hasn't scored in about 3 months, and he's still the top scorer in the Premier League after this game.
So you forget he's been injured. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because City have been all right, you forget he's not been there.
Well, he's been out for 2 months, I think.
Yeah,
and he was still sat on 14 Premier League goals. It's like, but yeah, he came in. I thought he took his goals really well. City I've said it before. City getting Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne back the right part of the season. That's just terrifying. Like literally getting your best 2 players back, whilst you're like only a couple of points behind the teams at the top of the table. Everton lose another game. I don't think we can necessarily be concerned about, not about that result. Recent form will be a concern though, and I think the outcome of whatever investigation or challenges to investigations or points deductions or appeals or whatever is going to be a big thing for them. I think how that goes, and again with Forest, that could determine whether we have one of those kind of newly promoted sides going down. That might be a lifeline for Luton.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they can keep the performances going. Also, Spurs beating Brighton. Spurs getting back into a little bit of form, getting some results. Brighton lose again. I think they've only got one win in their last 5.
Something like that. Might be worse. It was like 2 wins in 10 or 12 or something.
They've had a really, really rough time of it. Outside of the cup, anyway. 2 wins in their last. Yeah, I think you might be right. 8 or 9 games, 10 games.
Yeah.
Struggling, and obviously really showed up in that 4-0 loss to Luton. I don't think anybody expected that.
No.
An away loss to Spurs can happen, but the early season form has deserted them. I said a week or 2 ago that I'd done a bit of deep diving, and they just don't seem to be creating chances anymore at the minute. I don't know whether it's personnel that's missing or a kind of a tactical thing, or like I've said previously, teams look like they're going against them with a plan because they know how they're going to play. They know they're going to try and draw them into a high press, so they're just not letting them do it. They're watching those midfield runners. It's like maybe there needs to be a little bit of evolution there to pull it around for the second half of the season. But they do have a ton of really talented players.
I think Matoma being missing for them has been massive this season. He's missed quite a lot of games for injury, and I think that's been a big factor. And as well, I think speaking from sort of experience of being in similar scenarios, I guess, I think if you ask a Brighton fan, I don't really know how much they care, just because I think for them, I don't want to speak for Brighton fans. I might be wrong here. I feel like for them, they only really care about the Europa League this season, as they should, really.
Yeah, they're not going to get relegated.
No, I think for them, I'm not going to say, enjoy it while it lasts, sort of thing, or this is where you are now. You'll never get back into Europe, because that'd be hypocritical of me. I think Brighton, if they have a year outside not being in Europe next year, let's say they don't qualify this year and they're just back to 1 game a week next season, they can absolutely qualify again. Because I think maybe just having those extra games in the early start of the season has just kind of hindered them a little bit. And again, with injuries, they've not been probably able to rotate as much. I think Fatty's not been available for the best part of a few months now. Matoma's been missing. I think they've missed some important players in midfield and defence as well. So I think for them, just like if they can go far in the Europa League and they end up finishing like ninth, but they get to like a quarter final or a semi final in the Europa League, that's a brilliant season for Brighton. And it just means they've got more time to go again next year to try and qualify for the Conference League or the Europa League again, which I think, again, you ask a Brighton fan, they'll be over the moon with that. You know, given they're not, with all due respect, not the biggest club in the world. It's like not been in the Premier League that long compared to a lot of teams in the league. Like I think it's just one of them. Maybe like maybe returning to the norm slightly, but like I don't think it's like anything to be massively concerned about from a Brighton perspective.
No, they've had some tough games in that time as well. You know, like with those losses and the poor run of form. I think I've actually got a bit of a favourable run of fixtures. I've just pulled them up now. Like we've got Sheffield United, Everton, then Wolves in the Cup, Forest, and Fulham, then Forest. I wouldn't be amazed if they didn't win 5 straight games. Like,
Genuinely.
It's they can turn it on as much as anyone at any point. I think the only concern, as a Brighton fan, would be, are they just losing the kind of the forward momentum that they've had for the last couple of years?
Yeah,
that'd be the only concern. But like at the end of the day, they're still going to have a solid season. They're probably going to finish top half, maybe top 8, and they could very well have a good run in the Europa. So
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
It's a damn sight of a change from when they came up and they were just hoping to stay in the division. So
yep, when everyone was saying, "Oh, what are you sacking Chris Hughton for? Careful what you wish for."
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. So what you're saying is Chris Hughton in West Ham?
Honestly, that is a realistic possibility. So let's not think about
it. Well, I mean, I don't know if you've got any other kind of pressing discussion points from the weekend, other than the revelation that there's going to be a new card potentially coming into the game. I think I'll ask your opinion on it, but I'll put, not my opinion, but for me, the best summary of it I've heard from a manager was from Ange Postecoglou, saying, bringing in a blue card, if you end up having a player taken off the pitch for 10 minutes, you're just going to have 10 minutes of a dead game because people are just going to try and see out the 10 minutes. It's another stoppage. It's another way of clogging up the game. It's in an era where every sport is trying to make their games faster and more interesting and more entertaining. Football seems to be doing the exact opposite and making things slower, taking decisions away from immediate decisions on the pitch, trying to make the games last longer, trying to add anything just to clog up the game. It's, for me, it's just ridiculous. Like, it's the whole premise, from what I can tell, the premise of it is to like stop dissent and stop people doing like kind of professional fouls and doing all that kind of stuff. But if the punishment is only going to stop the game from progressing at all, then what's the point of it? Like, if you're going to give someone a 10-minute sin bin for a professional foul, just make a professional foul, like a breakaway counter-attack thing. Just make that straight red.
Yeah.
If that's what it's going to be, make it a straight red. If it's for the protection of the referees, just have a relentless yellow card policy for dissent. I mean, they did it for one game in the United game for Diego Dallo, but no other fucker gets it. Like, and he only dissented once. He got 2 yellow cards for the same dissent. You see, yeah, and then like everyone else is getting away with it now. So just make it a yellow card. As soon as you start giving just consistent yellow cards for it, it'll stop because you'll end up with players getting sent off. Just make it a consistent thing. You don't need to bring in another thing for referees to get wrong. Because all that will happen as well is you'll just get the discourse of, well, you got a yellow card, it should have been a blue card. You got a red card, it should have been a blue card. You got a blue card, it should have been a red card. It's just going to be another ridiculous decision. Just give the referees, or make the referees be consistent in their decision making.
Yeah, it's one of the worst ideas put forward. I think it's IFAB who put it forward. From my understanding, I think there was such a backlash to it. They've now said the trials have been delayed and they're going to re-review the plan. Which
filed in the round filing cabinet on the floor.
Yeah, basically, hopefully it means it won't ever be touted again. Funnily enough, I feel like I said this last week. I'm about to say this. I think Paul Merson made a really good point on it because I've heard Paul Merson, which I know is mental. Like, there might be a.
Did you see Paul Merson was in the TV studio at the weekend of the United game?
Yeah, he was, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, he fucking. what did he come out and say? Oh, that one of David Moyes' team. Bet you find it fucking was, Paul.
But he was in there like on TV. He's like, is he lost? What is Merce doing giving like halftime analytics? Like
Paul Merson is a weird one for me because like in amongst he comes across as a bit of a dimwit because he can't like pronounce players' names properly and stuff. But like to be fair, you listen to some of the stuff he comes out with, he does speak quite a bit of sense every now and then. I find anyway. Like there's bits where he's been clipped up. You listen to him, you go, yeah, I can't even disagree with anything he said here. And it's kind of the thing with with when they first, this is a few months back, like they sort of, the idea of sin bins have been touted around and stuff. And he said, like, well, the thing is in rugby, and I don't watch rugby because the game covers last week. I'm not a wanker, but like, from my understanding, is like a sin bin in rugby in terms of the difference that can make to the game is actually quite a big. It has quite a big impact on the game, so just from an entertainment perspective and a viewer's perspective and a sporting perspective. Whereas he said the same thing. If you go into 10 men for 10 minutes, you're going to take longer to ball goes out for a throw in for a corner. You're going to have a little jog over there, waste time like it's in the 89th minute and you're 2-1 up. Do you know what I mean? And you're going to knock it around the back for a bit and just wait for whoever the player is to come back on. There's been no, because we were trying to figure this out the other day on stream. It's like, well, because the point I was making is it's like, oh, we're bringing in this new punishment for dissent and professional fouls. And my point was, you mean like a yellow card? Like not to be like, pardon me for stating the obvious. I think that already exists. I think you've already got that covered. Maybe you just need to be a bit more. But then obviously the thing is, if they like you say, they give 2 yellow cards for dissent and one, like I say with Dallo, it causes an uproar and it causes a big debate, or because there's no consistency within that particular rule. The tactical foul rule has been pretty consistent. If you purposely foul someone to stop a counter attack, that's a yellow card, which I think everyone is. That's the tactical foul. It's a risk you take. It's why it's called. I'm taking one for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
or if Mighty Cash dives for one.
Yeah. But yeah, like it's bonkers to me, and like I said, I don't understand why or who thought that would be an idea that everyone would be on board with. It's absolute nonsense. And as well, bearing in mind the amount of added time we're getting, like you say, we're slowing games down, and as a result, because of all the added time, games are now taking longer because they're adding so much extra time because they are counting all the stoppages and stuff. Like I say, in that 10 minutes, how many stoppages do you think they're going to be? Just for little niggly fouls, or like again, just taking time over every throw in, every corner.
Yeah,
it's just going to be chaos. And no one's been clear on whether or not, like, is it meant to replace the yellow card? Is it in addition to the yellow cards and the red cards? Like, where do you draw the line? Okay, what's dissent? So any dissent is now a blue card, or any like? So there's no they haven't specified where the sort of differentiation is between that and what's the yellow card offense. You know,
the only hilarious thing that would come out of that would be when you have 6 players surrounding the ref and you've got a teamed out of 5 men for 10 minutes.
all you do, and the thing is, there was originally an idea, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Barnet. It wasn't originally a rule, but I think Barnet FC sort of implemented themselves, where they had a rule where only the captain would go and talk to the referee. And I think since then, everyone agreed that's actually a good idea. We'll adopt that. As I was, when all this blue card shit came out the other day, I was thinking about it, and it's like, you know, it's not something you really see all that much anymore. Well, you sometimes do, but it's a bit pantomime, I feel like. Whereas like loads of players go around the referee, and after about 5 minutes, the captain wanders over and goes, "Don't worry, guys, I've got this." Do you know what I mean? Like, go on, get out of here, you little scamps. I'll talk to him. It's like, yeah, but I've already bollocked him for the past like 30 seconds. Like,
this is what I mean. Like in those situations, it should just be like anybody who's there, like in the ref's ear, just gets a yellow card.
That's not the captain, I think. Like,
and then it's just like, there you go. Everyone's on a yellow card. Oh, luckily you've already got one. You're off. Like you start doing that, and I guarantee it. I don't think it even takes 6 months. I think within a month. Yeah. Like it'd be sorted out. But there's no bottle for it. Like, but I think what it'd take is every referee being that strict, and it being like the answer, and the managers going, look, my players know the rules. They're stupid. Yeah. Like it'd take the referees and and IFAB and the managers and the PFA to say, look, they know the rules. They've been made more than aware of the rules. So if you do that, then you're getting a yellow card.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
yeah.
I just like I say, I can't understand how a group of people who work for the organisation that literally comes up with rules for football have all sat around the table, or whatever, or on a Zoom call and gone, "That's a great idea."
I wonder whether
People are gonna
they've
love
looked
this.
at, like you say, the way that it works in rugby or the way that it works in, say, like hockey. You end up with a power play. Like you've
Yeah.
got a, but the thing is, it's such a different way of playing the sport.
That's the thing.
In football, I can't talk about rugby because, like you say, I'm not a wanker. I don't know the rules of rugby. But in hockey, like the power play, you can't knock it around the back for 5 minutes. You can't
No.
spend 3 minutes taking a throw in. Like you knock it, you're up against it. You know that you're a man down, so you've got to be defend really well. Like there is no two ways about it. In football, like you say, it'll just be time wasting.
Yeah.
or and waiting for the team with the extra player to get frustrated, and then maybe you fit over the top.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, how many times have you watched the game and there's been like an early red card, and the commentator will go, "It's a shame that it's really spoiled the game."
Yeah.
Like, it was looking like to be a really good game, and it's kind of ruined it now because it's just going to be this team's now going to sit back and just defend for the rest of the game. Like,
it'll be that every game.
Unless you're Tottenham. Can you imagine Tottenham with like 3 players in the sim bin? They're still like on the halfway line. Still doing it.
But this is the thing, though. Like, if hopefully this has been quashed and it'll never happen. But if it were a case of any dissent is a blue card, you will literally have. I don't think there'll be any minute outside of the first 5 minutes. I don't think there'll be any minute of the game where there's 11v11.
Yeah, but you have to define what you'd have to almost redefine what dissent is, because is dissent just going up to the referee and going, "Ref, why was that a foul?"
Yeah,
or is it, "Oh, ref, you knobhead." Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I know where you live. Like, is that? It's a big trait. But you know, but you know what I mean. It's like you have to sort of define what is classified as dissent, because I think there are differences. Like, it could just be a player questioning, why have you given that as a foul? I've won the ball.
Yeah.
Compared to the other extreme at the end of the spectrum.
Yeah, it'd just be chaos. It's just a terrible idea that we've definitely. Yeah, it's a terrible idea that we've definitely milked for as long as we can for a discussion point on a podcast.
Enjoy the clip.
Clip that up. Right. Well, yeah, I think that'll be it from us this week. We're not going to put it on for 2 hours like we have done in the past. And I think you did very well talking about the West Ham situation without swearing. So
yeah, do you know what? Like, I was ready to go in, and like I said, the more I spoke about it and thought about it, I was like, I'm just sad. I'm just very sad. But well,
make sure you go and tune in to Breezy streams where you can ask for more opinions on how terrible West Ham are. And if I have a stream, you can come and ask me your questions as well. So cheers once again for tuning in, everybody. Like I say, wherever you are watching or listening to us, whatever platform you decide, make sure you are liking, following, subscribing. Go check us out on the socials at United Front Pod. It's everywhere. So yeah, you can go and interact with us there as well. But that'll be it from us for now, and we'll see you next time. Laters.
West Ham are not massive.
Massively underperforming.
Oh, God.